Welcome to 13. Let's go. Obviously this week, how could I not talk about the final? So it's going to be the last one. The final talk on Prop 22. It's done. It's completed. I've had people over the years asking me, what about this or what about this? And I've tried to explain that Proposition 22 in California is a three-sided battle, really. You got the people who wanted Prop 22 and fought to have it put on the ballot initiative. You also have 59%, almost 60% of Californians who voted in the 2020 November election voted for yes on Prop 22, which is what many people wanted, who were the non-independent contractor ones who wanted that kind of employee feel but not employee status. And then you have some of the gig worker rights groups and things like that in California who have said, well, this isn't enough. And they went as far as to say Prop 22 is unconstitutional. Again, I've challenged this so many times. We've been going through this now since 2020, since January of 2020. So this is just crazy that this has gone all this far, because it was end of January when it was pronounced that it would be on the ballot. But this affects everybody. This isn't just a rideshare bill. Many people aren't sure about that because the way the story gets tossed around and through the media in the past few days, if you've noticed this last week, the Prop 22 stories have been very different, but every paper has run one. Every paper that ever talks about gig news has run a story on this because it's the biggest story there is. And it's the biggest story there is because other states are using it. So in a lot of instances, the articles I was reading that I put up on Uber Lyft drivers as well, .com, you can go over there and check them out because they're all a little different. They all have a different angle. And it also has the taste and the appeal of wherever that article originated from. What state is it from? If it's from Massachusetts right now, they're focusing on the rideshare industry and trying to do pale by comparisons only. So here's the thing. Prop 22 is not just a rideshare bill. However, in many states, just rideshare bills are being fought out right now, which will eventually lead to food delivery and things of that nature. But they're using Prop 22 as a model. And you got different sides saying different things. You have the hardcore unions saying, no, we got to keep fighting. You have a lot of people going, this is going to be great. You have the people going, oh my gosh, I'd rather just stay an independent contractor. So there's a lot of outcomes to this that could be very detrimental. Mike Harubi and I are in the middle of a piece right now on Be My Own Boss podcast. Check it out on Mondays. I believe we're on part 4 this week, tomorrow. And then we'll be concluding with parts 5 and 6. So check that out. But I chose an article that is talking about how this was a loss. This is one of the groups saying that Prop 22 was a loss. And so I'm going to go through this article today, and I'm going to agree with some things that are said, but not because I think it's a loss for the same reasons they do. But I'm trying to fight its constitutional value and whatnot. But the article is called Tragic Outcome for Gig Workers in California as Supreme Court Hands Down Win to Uber and Doordash. Okay, so labor advocates on Thursday decreed a ruling by the California Supreme Court upholding a lower court's affirmation of a state ballot measure allowing app-based ride and delivery companies to classify their drivers as independent contractors, limiting their workers' rights. Limiting their workers' rights. See, I think that already we're in the major confusion, okay? Because clearly the company, look, when I can't, anytime I can, I don't side with the companies. But on this one, I got to say, from the beginning, they've called us independent contractors. I question the value of that term being a traditional independent contractor from before any of these gig apps existed. I question the definition of a hybrid independent contractor on gig app platforms. I think there needs to be a better definition to it. But until there is, the fact that both sides, the driver and the platform, are agreeing, that is what it is. If we're going to be independent contractors, we are. If they're not, they're employees. That's part of the problem. There's no middle zone here. It has to be one or the other. So that's why they fight so hard about keeping independent contractors, because they can't survive a week with an employee model. And yet some people are still fighting for that. And those people, I've always said, are the ones who are trying to just put a grenade in the system and destroy it for those who can earn on it. Look, we know every market's different. We know every city's different. We know every person's different. What hours are you working can be different. I might work here in Denver from midnight to 6, and somebody might go, yeah, I could never work those hours. Well, and I'm not saying those are the best paying, but what if I make twice as much as you during those hours? You can't complain that you can't make as much on the platform if you're not willing to work the same hours I do. And even if you do work the same hours, we don't know the outcomes. So there has to be a little bit of that. But the court upholding this is finally putting all of this to rest. So for those of you that have been in the confusion of all this Prop 22, understand that now it is solidified. The state's highest court has locked it down. It's done. All the constitutional battles gone. All the, because that would have been another hard thing too. How do you go to all the California voters, 59% of the millions who voted, and say, oh, by the way, because the 59% was a win by 6 million votes. So you do the math. That 9% was 6 million. So, I mean, how do you go to the tens of millions of people who voted for this and say, yeah, by the way, this wasn't constitutionally sound, so we're going to decree that doesn't exist and your vote is null and void because we didn't look into it enough. Now, we all know for a fact that both sides, the Flex Association, which is Doordash, Instacart, UberEats, Grubhub, Uber, Lyft, they all participated in the $218 million that was spent on the Flex Association to fight Prop 22. So on the other side, we've got the California Attorney General and everybody, and they're all spending as much as they can too. And through the years, even after it passed, there's been more money spent battling this thing. And finally it's to rest. But we're coming up on $500 million in total that will have been spent just on a wasted ballot, in my opinion, because now people are starting to say, well, this isn't really benefiting me. I specifically had a conversation with somebody who was doing DoorDash in California and said that with the new tier system, now this is a new thing, because even till then, people, we knew that rideshare drivers weren't really prospering by Prop 22. And that's who it was meant for. When it was decided to become law in November or in October of 2019, we knew that they weren't caring about delivery drivers because the pandemic wasn't even a thing yet, or even known about, or even hints of it. So the fact of the delivery space being affected by this, they were not that concerned. But it got pulled in to the ruling once the pandemic happened. So people didn't know they would benefit like this from the delivery platform. So on the rideshare side, they don't really see much because an active time of work in California should be 120% of an hourly pay on a W-2 job. So if California has a variance of $16 to $20 an hour. So whether it be 16 or 20 or anywhere in between, you do the math, 120% of $20 an hour is $24. If you're doing rideshare, if you're active for an hour, you'll at least be making $24. And the tips are not included. This is just platform pay. So the difference comes back in a Prop 22 money. I think it's what they're going to do in Massachusetts is every week or every 2 weeks, and I think California does the same. I don't know if it's every week or every 2 weeks, but it comes in the form of a payment, Prop 22 pay, and it comes every week or two, and it catches you all up. And I think that many of you even remember a lot of the things that we brought up, like you could be on 2 platforms at once and be active timing on Grubhub and on Doordash. I mean, who knows if they've even collectively solved any of that? But there are approximately 1.4 million app-based gig workers in California right now who are active on the platforms. The part-timers would be absolutely screwed, and it would be ended if they moved to an employee or a franchise model. Those only work for full-timers. And the platforms only work if most of the people working them are part-timers. Plus, the platforms do not work if they have to pay payroll. So the solutions here are, it doesn't work if we have to get rid of the part-time people because we don't have enough full-time that we can rely on to constantly have the wave, even though we know there's oversaturation to the nth degree, right? But it doesn't matter because, it does, but bottom line is those people have other means of income too. So, what is going on here? So all of, I mean, to kind of put things into a different perspective, even DoorDash hailed this as a win. And God, you know me, I hate to be on the side of what's called a DoorDash win, but they even says, here's the quote from them, not only a victory for Dashers, but also for democracy itself. That's the quote from the DoorDash team on how they felt about the decision on Friday. And of course they did, it was a win. But when I hear that, I'm like, how am I siding with this? And it's because I think that the alternative of losing Prop 22 was so harsh. In a way, I almost wish it had imploded, because it would have put the whole AB5 thing back on the spectrum. And again, I won't harsh on that too much, guys. You can go spend as much time as you want researching AB5 on this channel right here, Rideshare Rodeo. So, but it's done. It's put in the back. Like, here's one quote. Over the last 3 years, gig workers across California have experienced firsthand that Prop 22 is nothing more than a bait and switch meant to enrich global corporations at the expense of the workers on the platform. Okay, so Prop 22 has allowed gig companies like Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash to deprive us of a living wage, access to worker compensation, paid sick leave, and meaningful healthcare coverage. Okay, again, these are quotes. Like, what do you mean living wage, access to compensation, paid sick? And Prop 22 has allowed gig companies to deprive you of that. Prop 22 made it so that they had to pay into that. So if anything, you guys are getting more help than anybody else. And with Lorena Gonzalez saying, we are deeply disappointed that the state Supreme Court has allowed tech corporations to buy their way out of basic labor laws, despite Prop 22's inconsistencies with our state constitution. First of all, anything that Lorena Gonzalez is on board with, I'll take the opposite way. Thank you very much. That woman is insane. But that said, this is all put to rest now. Prop 22 is done. It's solidified. And by done, I mean it's there. It's solidified now. It will be there. The battles are over. The talk is over. And now we just get to watch other states try and play it out at a different time than those pandemic times when we actually saw a little bit of it working in California, even though it's not a working model. It does not work. It would not work across the whole country. And the platforms cannot afford that expense. Therefore, we need to get back to just, I still believe in the desaturation is the biggest thing, and watching it as we go forward. And that's 13 minutes of gig news in just under 13 minutes. Peace, y'all.